Welcome to Sterling on Sunday. I'm James Parker, sitting in for the great Walter Sterling. How you doing? We have 3 more hours of the weekend unofficially left, and we're going to squeeze as much fun as we can out of this. I know tomorrow morning I got to wake up early and go back to the grind. You do too, but we are not done yet. That's what I like about this show. This show is this is the tail end of the weekend. This is whatever you did this weekend. I'm the closing act. I don't care which of the opening bands you came to this concert for. I'm the headliner. Well, I'm the backup headliner. The headliner's off this weekend, so that makes it a little less prestigious. But don't worry about it. We have still a full packed show. I'm usually a part of this show. If you're a regular listener to me or to the show, you hear me host Florida Stories. You know, for Sterling on Sundays, I'm James Parker, and this is Florida Stories, and I play the hold my beer thing all the time, and it's
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer. What is this?
yeah, that thing. See, that's me. I'm that guy. And so sometimes when Walter's out, I get to fill in. But, you know, because I like listening to shows that I'm a part of, I know all these guys that are still going to be joining us today. Velo Hool has a fishing report. And what other show do you listen to has a fishing report? I would guess none of them. You already heard weather. We're going to do that twice every hour throughout the show. Vic Ferrari has a true crime story. Vic, he's a retired New York Police Department detective. And we have a new edition of the Drive-Through Brew. I'm going to start out the show, after we do the monologue here, I'm going to start out with my first topic. It's something I'm not real happy about. I'm not real proud of it. I'm what we call, I'm reluctant. I am a reluctant new believer to UFOs. And I feel like such a goober. I feel like such an idiot saying that because we all assume UFOs are for the people that listen to Coast or George Norrie or Art Bell or whatever the stereotype is. You know, it's kind of that crazy part of the dark web with these people that listen to Alex Jones, and a lot of them are overweight and just have a hard time getting an attractive person to go out on a date with them. You know, I don't want to be a part of the UFO crowd just because the UFO crowd our entire lives has been so embarrassing and so dorky and so far-fetched. And now I think I'm one of them. And there's just too much evidence. Too much is going on. And too many people are flipping. The official, one of the reasons I changed is the official position of the Pentagon has changed in the last year. In fact, they just announced it in 2020 that, okay, UFOs are a thing. They call them UAPs, unexplained aerial phenomenon, or UAFs, unexplained aerial flying objects, or something to that effect. But the people on both sides of the political aisle, so this can't be a political thing, Tucker Carlson now agrees with the New York Times, and if they both can look at an object and see the same thing, then believe it or not, that kind of makes it more credible in my eyes. We have Jimmy Carter. Do you know Jimmy Carter filed a UFO report before he was president? When he was just, he wasn't a private citizen, he was a military veteran. But still, Dennis Kucinich said, wasn't he at like Liza Minnelli's house or something, and he saw a UFO? Okay, there's been a lot of people who are otherwise not insane who have gone out and said they've actually seen a UFO. I have a guy that I used to work with on a radio show in Dallas, and he told the story about the time he got abducted. And I didn't know if he was doing it for purposes of the radio. But I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he did some bad mushrooms, and he just had a trip and believed it's real. But this is a guy that I've never seen lie about other such things, and he's not one of those psycho people. And he told me almost 20 years ago that he got abducted. And he tells almost nobody because everyone thinks he's crazy. And so he just whips it out on the radio like every 5 years or so, takes the heat and backs off. But there's just been little kernels like this that have been dropping throughout my life that have stacked up. And I reached the tipping point. I'm past the tipping point now. I believe in UFOs. Yikes. Am I that guy? Are you that guy? All right, so that's what we're going to get into. But first, I like to start off by telling some jokes. Is that all right if we start with some jokes? Hey there, welcome to the monologue. I am your host, James Parker. Hey, thank you very much. Nancy Pelosi, she has a call for a boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. China's foreign minister said she's full of lies and disinformation, and these facts have been checked by Chinese checkers. Get it? Chinese checkers? You thought I was going to make a Pelosi joke, didn't you? According to TMZ, Arnold Schwarzenegger's illegitimate son Joseph Baina is following in his father's footsteps. At age 24, he's already an accomplished bodybuilder and a horrible actor. So, thank you. According to a new study, the average American makes 2,190 excuses every year. I make excuses, but it's not my fault. I had a tough childhood. See? A Spanish tavern has introduced a robot bartender, and this robot is so sophisticated, so lifelike, it actually sells weed on the side. It's so real. All right, Saturday, this coming up Saturday, is Buy a Musical Instrument Day. I'm selling a violin, no strings attached. I'm a dad. I have to get those in there. I have to get in the dad jokes. All right, pundits say President Biden's losing support from his own party. To give you an idea how bad it is, Jimmy Carter's comparing him to Jimmy Carter. Georgia has been invaded by Argentine giant tegu lizards, which eat small animals, and zoologists say the deceptive predators trick their prey into believing they can save them money on car insurance. Yeah. All right. A 12-year-old New Jersey boy is set to become the world's youngest chess grandmaster. And man, when I was that age, I was still trying to master The Legend of Zelda. It's pretty prestigious. Happy birthday to Pete Townsend of The Who. I don't want to say he's getting old, but he and the band have a new song called Won't Get Fooled Again by Telemarketing Scams. Stop it. That's kind of funny. All right, a man named Todd Robbins holds a world record for eating more than 4,000 light bulbs. He says he's always been a light eater. I have to do the dad jokes. They're in my contract. You stop it. That was a good one. The ceasefire seems to be holding in the Middle East. No such luck in Chicago. And finally, according to the National Enquirer, Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck are back together. They broke up 17 years ago, and he still regrets leaving her behind. See what I did there? See what I did there? All right. UFOs. Let's do it. Let's get it out there. I feel like an idiot saying this. I hope you feel at least somewhat reluctant like I do even talking about this. Because this is an embarrassing part of the radio spectrum. You don't want to be the host that talks about vampires and Bigfoot and UFOs. Yet here I am. The thing is 60 Minutes did a report on this last Sunday. And they had a bevy of Navy pilots and other people who have seen these UAFs, UAPs, UFOs. I'm just going to use the term UFO because I don't want to say UAP because it sounds like I'm trying to sort of propagandize my own story here, and I don't. If this sounds ridiculous, fine. I'm going to sound ridiculous. But these Navy pilots are pretty believable dudes, and there's quite a few of them, and this has happened over and over across a span of decades. It's not like this happened once, or is this one group of guys saw UFOs over and over and over. This has been going on for quite a while, going back basically to the video camera. And some of these have weird explanations, but a lot of them don't. And so now we're stuck. Now we're stuck saying, okay, we have some friends that have seen UFOs, probably. We have some other people we believe who have seen UFOs, with some Navy pilots who've seen UFOs. There's a lot of kind of questionable footage of stuff that is UFOs. And remember, when I say UFO, I don't mean there's aliens coming out of it, or it's Predator, or Independence Day. I just mean there's something flying out there, and we do not know what it is. We have no explanation for it. And for some of these things, the way they move, the trajectory, the way they stop and start and propel themselves, we have no explanation for it. We couldn't even fathom that, okay, maybe the government's working on some sort of drone that kind of stops and starts and moves in a way we're not used to. Yeah, but not like that. We do not have that power yet. And if we do, they are doing a great job freaking us out. But also, if we do, did they have this power when these videos started popping up, 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? Some of these are even older than that. But you also have the Pentagon making their official change of heart last year, where this is the official position of the United States Defense Department, is there are UFOs. We're not saying they're aliens. They're unexplained. They are flying objects out there that the Pentagon either doesn't know what they are, or they don't want us to know that they know what they are. But there's not a whole lot of difference between those two so far. We're expecting a big report to be released. There's some sort of internal investigation where they're coming up with a big white paper that's supposed to be released to the public next month that is supposed to lay a bunch of cards on the table that we haven't been privy to before. And this is going to be pretty cool here because in the ramp up to it, it's getting some coverage, and the people that are attached to this, that are adjacent to this, while they're not telling you what's in it, they're telling you this is going to be a big deal. So, hey, do I have a minute here, James, over there on the board?
Yeah, 1 more minute.
All right, I'll do this when I get back. Look, we don't go political on this show. So this I want you to take your political guard and put it down. But Barack Obama was on one of the late shows, James Corden, and they were asking questions. He and the band leader were asking questions, and the band leader asked Barack Obama, "What's up with the UFOs? What's going on with the aliens and stuff?" And Barack Obama, there is no script for this. He's not reading off a teleprompter, and there wasn't a prepared statement. I think we got a pretty honest answer out the guy, and it was basically, yeah, we do have UFOs. He didn't see any aliens, or doesn't know where we're hiding the spacecraft, like in Independence Day, to reference that movie for a second time. But I'm going to play it for you in its entirety because it's a little bit of a back and forth, and it's going to take about a minute and a half. But just listen to the way he's saying it. Like, he wants you to know that he actually looked into this. And this is one of the things that if you became president and I became president, isn't that one of the first things we would ask? I would say, all right, where's the alien? Do we have aliens that, like, I don't know if it's Area 51 or whatever, but if we have like an alien body, I want to see it. If we have an alien spacecraft, I want to see it. Who shot JFK? And who killed Jeffrey Epstein? And why did that guy in Las Vegas shoot up the country concert? These are like, I would want to get all the mysteries solved. I wouldn't ask about Bigfoot because Bigfoot's not a thing. Forget that. That's ridiculous. We'd have found that dude by now. But it's just stacking up. The evidence is stacking up. And me taking an honest scientific method approach to this topic, the evidence has gotten so great that the little Jenga tower has fallen over, and now I reluctantly, kind of embarrassingly, believe in UFOs. I'm going to say this again. I do not believe in aliens. They may or may not be out there, but there's no way I can look at you with a straight face or through the radio with a straight voice and say, no, there's no such thing as UFOs. They're there, y'all. They are there. And the bedfellows, the strange bedfellows that this topic has brought together, pretty much makes it really, really hard to deny. Now, if you still don't believe in UFOs, maybe you just think there was some Nutella that was on the camera lens and that's not an alien or whatever. I don't know what your explanation is. That's fine. I'm not going to belittle you for it. That's cool. I'm a recent convert, and I kind of hope I find some more evidence on this topic that it explains these things away, and I don't have to be the guy that believes in UFOs anymore. But here's another strange bedfellow. The director of the CIA under Donald Trump and the director of the CIA under Barack Obama, both are on the record as believing in UFOs. 888-688-WALTER, 888-688-WALT. I'm James Parker, sitting in for Walter Sterling. This is Sterling on Sundays.
Sterling on Sunday. Guest starring James Parker, host of the No Awards Florida Stories. Welcome, James Parker.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's good to be back on Sterling on Sundays. I'm James Parker. You usually hear me on Florida Stories, which we will be doing some Florida Stories later in the program. And it's not going to be the little package 3-minute thing. I'm going to run through a few segments of Florida Stories. It was wild. I mean, absolutely wild in Florida. How many fake gun stories can we have? More than one, I'll just tell you that. Right now, though, we're talking about the UFO phenomenon. And if you're wondering why the coverage has ramped up on this, there's been a lot of questions asked in public. And, it came up when Obama was being interviewed on the James Corden Late Show. There's a big paper that's supposed to be released, like a congressional inquiry. Some committee is putting together something to go public about UFOs and the official position of the United States government on aliens, or on UFOs, I should say, not aliens, on UFOs. They finally admitted for the first time last year that these guys UFOs, UAFs, UAPs, whatever they want to call them, are a thing. All right, so here was that clip I was talking about right before the break. James Corden, it's one of these late shows. Barack Obama's on there, and you hear him having the conversation with the band leader.
All this talk about dem aliens with the what are they, UAFs or whatever they call them, all the footage and everyone talking about it. It's like, what is your, like, I know that doesn't necessarily mean aliens, it is just a UAF, but I was wondering if you have a theory about that.
Well, when it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you on air.
But you'll tell us off air.
He was smiling when he said that. That was a joke part, but this is serious right here. This part's serious.
No, look. The truth is that when I came into office, I asked, right? I was like, all right, is there the lab somewhere where we're keeping the alien specimens in spaceship? They did a little bit of research, and the answer was no. But what is true, and I'm actually being serious here, is that there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And so, I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is. But I have nothing to report to you today.
All right. There's a government report coming out next month. And the hype about this, there were some questions that were asked by the former director of national intelligence under Trump. And he says that there's going to be information about video of aircraft that are engaged in actions that are difficult to explain, just like basically what Obama said there. But he also said we don't have the technology for this, and it's doing sonic booms without making the boom. I'm James Parker, in for Sterling on Sunday.
Walter Sterling is avoiding work. Tonight, doing Walter's work. Welcome, James Parker, host of Florida Stories, live, professional James Parker.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beard.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beard. What?
Yeah, that's me, the Hold My Beer guy. All right. Hey, welcome to Sterling on Sundays. We're going to have some fun here with the last few hours we have of the weekend. You usually hear me on Florida Stories, and I'm going to be sprinkling in a lot of Florida stories. We're not going to do like a Florida Story segment, but since I have more time to talk about some of the crazy stuff that we come across in Florida, first things first, if you ever want to send me a Florida story, you can find me on Twitter at James Parker Show. Like, my name's James Parker, and there's a show that associated with me. So James Parker at James Parker Show. Or you can email me. You can find me on Facebook. A lot of people found me on Facebook, and I get the most tips through the Facebook Instant Messenger. That's fine. However you want to send me a link here. And I wish I had more time to go into some depth on some of these stories that I'll get to do today. Like this one. This would make Florida Stories, the regular old version of it, if you're a regular listener to the show. There's usually about a 3-minute produced segment where I whip through some of the craziest Florida stories. And I get to explain the story, give you a little detail, usually do a punchline, and then boom, I move on to the next story. But this one we're going to spend a little time on. For this one, we're going to Kendall, Florida, and we're going to go to a Macy's. And this is interesting. Macy's still exists. This is one of the few last remaining department stores that are just disappearing over the horizon. But just before 8:30 p.m., police were called to a possible shoplifting incident near the Macy's store. The security guys had been watching this fella, and from the little master control room with the 24 TV monitors, just like it looks like in the movies, they're watching this guy go from place to place, and they actually get the police in there before the guy even leaves the store. So when the guy's leaving the store employees go up to talk to him. They're like, "Excuse me, sir, can I stop you here?" Yeah. We just need to ask you a few questions. And the guy's like, "Nope, I'm not going to be answering any questions. I think I'll be leaving." So he walks around the two employees. He goes out the door, and out the door, There's 2 cops waiting on him. They're like, "Sir, we're going to have to ask you some questions. We're going to have to ask you to stop here." And he's like, "No, I don't think I will stop." He pulls out what looks like a gun. The cops were a little faster than he was about doing something about it. And the first cop fires 1 shot. It hits him in the leg, and I don't know how many shoplifted pairs of shorts he had on under his pants, but it stopped him. He goes down for the count. He's taken to the hospital. He's going to be in stable condition. But he dropped what looked like his gun, and they go pick it up, and it is a metal outline of a gun. It's like sort of a toy gun, except it's just solid metal. And it's just sort of sculpted, like a sculpted block of metal to look like a gun. And on the underside of where the barrel would be is a sharpened blade. So what do we have here? We have a knife that is shaped like a gun. My comedic sensibilities automatically just want to jump on the punchline, like hyenas on a zebra carcass. He brought a knife to a gunfight, or he brought a gun knife to a gunfight, or you should never bring a gun knife to a gunfight, or if you never bring a knife gun, or I would be working it out in my head where that punchline comes from. But the voice that's screaming even louder in my head in reaction to this story is, why would you even own a gun knife, a knife gun? I don't know what this is called. I didn't know these things existed. This is basically the dumbest instrument to use in a self-defense situation. So let me get this straight. You want the guy that you are in a life and death situation with, I'm assuming it's life and death because you're pulling a deadly weapon, and one that looks like an even more deadly weapon, but it's actually just the less deadly weapon. See, it's a knife that looks like a gun. Where's the scenario that you would be in where you would need this, where it's like, I want to escalate things to deadly force, but I don't actually want to be able to pull it off, right? I don't actually want to be able to shoot anybody. I just want the guy that I'm going up against here in this mortal situation to think I have the ability to shoot him. This is almost the most beautiful suicide by cop move you could pull off. You know, there's always, I don't want to say always, but there's often those guys that try to get the cops to kill him. So, hey, this will do it. You want to pull out, I mean, you might as well just pull out a toy gun, but what's the point of the knife part even? Like, a toy gun makes sense. I understand why a toy gun would be made. You would give something to your kids that they can play with. Maybe it shoots like little projectiles, but not actual bullets. So toy guns make sense. Real guns make sense. Knives make sense. But a fake gun / knife, it makes, I can't imagine. I'm not trained in combat. I didn't go to boot camp. I hadn't even played a whole lot of Assassin's Creed. I can't even fathom who made this and what they were thinking of. Like, if you're an inventor, are you just the worst inventor ever? Like, let's make an oven that burns the house down? Seriously, I mean, James, not me, the guy on the board. I mean, does anybody have any clue on when you would need this weapon? When you would need the person in front of you to think that you have the ability to shoot them, but really all you have the ability to do, and it's not even a big blade. What are you going to do? Cut up a ham sandwich? I mean, it'd be real tough to kill somebody with that. It'd be a lot of slashing, or maybe you just have to hit that jugular like right on. But you're not going to be doing a whole lot of deep puncture wounds. It's not a katana blade. This is the blade itself looked like it was maybe 3 inches. I mean, my pocket knife is like 3.5 inches. This is just amazingly dumb. And so, Florida man, you're going to go commit illegal activities. You're going to go on a shoplifting spree with a fake gun. You're going to pull your fake gun on the cops. What did you think would happen when you pulled the fake gun on the cops? Did you expect them to not shoot you? Or at least tase you? Is there a scenario by which you could win if you have the fake gun and they have real guns? Is there some kind of Batman parlor trick? Or, man, what? All this for what? Some clothes from Macy's? Macy's. Yeah, I'm blown away. I don't know how he thought this was going to end. I don't know what his end game was. I don't know why he bought the gun the gun knife in the first place. I don't even know why the gun knife was invented in the first place. This whole thing just so you get some Macy's clothes. Sorry, I just read stories like this, and this blows my mind. I've been to Macy's before. Never did any of that cross my mind. But every step along the way, none of this makes sense. I mean, see, This is why I wish I had more time on the Florida story segments that I usually get to do here on Sterling on Sundays, because it's one of these things where I give you these stories and I just float these things out there, and you have all these questions, and sometimes I just want to go over it and let you know I don't have the answers to these questions most of the time. And I don't think there are answers to this question most of the time. What is anybody going to do with a knife gun? Are you gonna scare an animal with it? Seriously, I can't think of any reason. What's the advantage of having it shaped like a gun? You do have kind of the pistol grip, which is nice for the knife if you're going to be doing some stabbing like this, forward stabbing maybe with your little 3-inch. It's just weird out there. And that's the beauty of what a Florida story is. And crazy stories happen in other states, but not as often as Florida. And Florida just has this weird part of its geography, part of its cultural, part of it is migratory, but this beautiful mix of people. So all the weird stuff that could happen in America can also happen in Florida. Like, you can't have stories about a hurricane or a shark bite in Montana. There's no sharks in Montana, but you could have that in Florida. You have all the crazy hillbilly sort of deliverance type people in the north and in the panhandle. It's more like West Virginia than it is Miami, right? But then down there you have Miami. You have one of the great international cities of the world, and you have the beautiful mix of Cubans and Puerto Ricans and Haitians and Americans and the snowbirds that come down from New York, and the people that have moved there permanently from New York, and all the retirees. And then you have that whole sort of Disneyland part in the middle. So you got Mickey Mouse in the middle, you got Deliverance on the top, you got Scarface on the bottom. It's wild, man, and the state is growing by leaps and bounds. It was making all kinds of news during the pandemic. What an amazing thing we got going on over there with that Florida. I'll watch it from a distance. Don't get me wrong. I'm not moving there tomorrow. I'll watch it from a distance. Here's one of the amazing things, too. This is another one of the stories that would have made it in the regular version of Florida stories. So I kind of feel like I should play the hold my beer stinger. Like,
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer. What is this?
for our next Florida story, we're going to St. Petersburg. A 33-year-old named Brian. Brian was day drinking with his friends. And they're in the garage putting down some oat sodas, and they get in a heated argument over Tom Brady. Well, they decide Brian is a little too drunk and he's a little too angry, so Brian's going to have to leave. So they get the friend actually that he was arguing with to drive him home. While he's on the way home, the argument over Tom Brady continues. They don't go into specifics here, but Brian, 33-year-old Florida man, Brian, he gets enraged and he starts punching the guy in the face who's driving the car. So the guy has to stop, and Brian's so drunk that they say, "You want to get out and fight?" And if you've ever fought a really drunk person, it's comical. They're moving in almost slow motion. You can dodge their punch, and then you just push them to the ground and you sit on him. But he's kind of enraged and going nuts, so his friend has to sit on him until the cops show up, and they throw him in jail. Again, this could have happened in other places, but it's hard to get really upset about someone insulting your quarterback if you live in Wyoming. There's not an NFL team. But just, that's part of it too. Like Tom Brady, he had the greatest career a quarterback has ever had. Already won more Super Bowls than any human beings ever won. And then he sort of does this weird thing where he puts all the NFL franchises on like that big Wheel of Fortune wheel, and he spins it, and he's like, "Hey, who wants to win a Super Bowl?" Doop, 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 doop. It lands on Tampa Bay. And it seemed kind of impossible, and it was like, okay, he's just doing that little encore thing that Joe Montana did with the Chiefs, and you see all these other quarterbacks like the Brett Favre's just kind of keep it going, make a few more bucks. No, he actually goes down there and wins the damn thing. And where did he do that? Look, he could have gone to Texas and tried it there. He could have gone to one of the teams in California and tried it there. He could have gone to Denver. He could have gone somewhere in the Northeast, Philadelphia, Baltimore. Where did he go? He went to Florida. Florida. It could have happened anywhere else. It happened in Florida. And if you are going to get into a fight and get sent to jail over defending the good name of your franchise's quarterback, is there a better one than Tom Brady? Because, I mean, how many Super Bowls has he won now? 7? Something to that effect? Been to 9 of them? If you're going to take a punch for a quarterback, it better be that guy. If you're going to go to jail for someone, it better not be for like a Sam Darnold. Better not be for a Mitch Trubisky. Oh, there's some upset Chicago people now. I can feel your anger coming from the Windy City. 888-688-WALTER. If you want to call in, 888-688-WALT. I'm James Parker, sitting in for Walter Sterling. This is Sterling on Sunday.
Walter Sterling is avoiding work. Tonight, doing Walter's work. Welcome, James Parker, host of Florida Stories, live, professional, James Parker.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Oh, beer. What?
Thank you. I'm James Parker, sitting in for Walter Sterling. This is Sterling on Sunday. 888-688-WALTER. If you want to call in, be a part of the show, 888-688-WALT. Look, it's so weird. My kids, I have 4 kids. They are, what are they now, 5, 7, 9, and 10. And I don't think they really understand the fact that you can make a phone number into a word, because they never really had the phone the way we did. Like, thank goodness when you pull up the phone numbers to dial that they have the little letters on there when you're doing your iPhone or whatever. But I just want to put this in your head. I like putting this in people's heads that either they haven't had kids yet, or their kids are grown and gone and they hadn't had to deal with this in a while. Think about it this way. My kid's 10 years old. My oldest kid, 10 years old. He has never heard a dial tone. I don't even think he really knows what a dial tone is. He's never used a landline. When would he see a landline? We haven't had a landline since he's been born. I hadn't had a landline since 10 years before he was born. Never heard a dial tone. Something else? My kids have never made a long-distance phone call. Why would they? You haven't made a long-distance phone call in, what, 20 years? It just went away, didn't it? That used to be a thing where you could sneak off and make long-distance phone calls from your employer. But even if you have a landline these days, do they charge you long-distance still? I don't know. I haven't had a landline in so long, I wouldn't know. But my children aren't even accustomed to the concept that just because someone is a little bit more than an area code away, you would have to pay extra. That's not covered by your bill already. It didn't used to be. It used to not be that easy. Yeah, so there's repercussions to that, though. If there's no such thing as long-distance phone calls, and if long-distance phone call, there's no charge from change in price if I call you from Hawaii or if I call you from Maine, if it doesn't matter, then why, oh why, do we have toll-free numbers? See, my kids don't understand the concept of toll-free number. They see it like 888-688-WALT, 888-688-WALT. You and I see that, and we're like, yes, that is one of those numbers, like a 1-800 or 877 or 866, and now we're up to 888. Those are toll-free numbers. That's where if I call in, I don't have to pay for. No, there's no such thing as long distance now anyway. What are you talking about? Isn't that bizarre? Makes so much sense to us. When my kids are using computer programs, and look, even though they're young, that's what they're on all day, every day as far as school goes. For most of the computer programs they use, whether it's a Microsoft Word or if they're using an audio editor or something like that, when they have the little buttons at the top, the one for save is a little picture of what? What is a little floppy disk? That's right. And when's the last time you saw a floppy disk? My kids have never seen a floppy disk. And by floppy disk, most of these little save buttons, they look like, what was it, the 3.5-inch floppy disk? Yeah, my kids have never even seen one of those, much less held it. They don't even know what that thing is. But that little design to them doesn't mean floppy disk. To them, that means the international hieroglyphics for save. Isn't that bizarre? I just like sharing. I'm in the middle of this whole kid thing, and it takes up a big portion of my life. And I like coming back and reporting to people who have regular lives, the cute little quirky intricacies of what it is to raise a kid in 2021. And it's funny because summer just started, and man, we get to play a lot, and I'm going to have some better stories coming up for you soon. I'm James Parker, sitting in for Walter Sterling. This is Sterling on Sunday. James Parker, sitting in for Walter Sterling on Sunday. 888-688-WALTER. If you want to call in, 888-688-WALT. We have Judy from Dallas joining us for what is probably the joke of the week, right, Judy?
That's right.
All right, what do you got for me this time?
Okay, well, there's this couple, and they're having serious memory problems, and so they go to the doctor, and the doctor tells them to write down everything so they don't forget. So one evening, they're watching TV, and the lady, she says, you know what I'd like? I'd love a big bowl of ice cream. And he said, the man says, no problem, I'll go get it. And he gets up to go in the kitchen, and the lady says, remember what the doctor said. We're supposed to write stuff down so we don't forget it. He says, I'm just going to go to the kitchen. I won't forget. So then he brings her back a plate of eggs and bacon. And she looks down and shakes her head. And she says, I knew it. You forgot my toast.
All right, that really was a pretty good one. Is there a second one, Judy?
You want another one?
Yeah, I was under the impression you had more than one this time around.
Well, if you want another one, I have another one.
Go.
Are you ready?
I'm definitely ready.
Okay. Okay. Now, what do you call a, wait a minute, I'm trying to think how to put this so it's good, you know? Okay.
All right, I like the first joke better, but thank you very much. This is Judy from Dallas calling in. Thank you very much. Man, it's so cool when you fill in for someone else's show and you get to interact with the same people they get to interact. Like I get to be a part of the fishing report and the Vic Ferrari's crime stories and then Judy's cute little jokes that I get to be a part of. I'm usually in the audience for those jokes, but now I actually get to have the conversation with Judy. It's like going to Pee-wee's Playhouse and then you have like the King of Cartoons or the Cartoon Cowboy, whatever Lawrence Fishburne was back in the day. All right, I got a story from my favorite Korea out there. There's two of them, but one of them makes more stories for talk radio, so I like them better. Kim Jong-un. He has banned skinny jeans and the mullets. That sounds like a goofy punchline I came up with, but that's actually really happening. The concern is these decadent fashion trends could topple the regime. That's the official statement, but I don't think anybody running around with a mullet and or skinny jeans is about to topple any regime in the history of ever. Is there any system of governance that has been overthrown by a mob of angry people with mullets? I don't think so. Has there ever been the storming of a Bastille or a Rose Revolution or someone just knocking out Parliament and they were all wearing skinny jeans? I don't think that's happened either. Not quite a full-blown historian, but I have read a book before, and I don't remember any of the skinny jeans or mullet riots. But the dictator is concerned about Western influence on the country's youth, and he sees this, the mullet and the skinny jeans, as an invasion of capitalistic lifestyle. Now, we've heard he's been more and more paranoid about being overthrown. You know, maybe his one of his half-sisters is going to kill him or something to that effect. But he's also decreed previously that people found embracing outlandish fashions would be sent to labor camps. Now, you know, I'm all for freedom and I'm a patriot, fun-loving American guy. But sending people to concentration camp for wearing skinny jeans, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, okay, I see where that comes from. It's wrong. I don't approve of it. I don't think we should do it here. But yeah, wouldn't that be nice? So really, how strong is your country? How strong is your administration if you think it can be toppled by silly fashion trends like that? And it's one of these things where if you even dig further into the hairstyle laws of North Korea, first off, you have to acknowledge that they have hairstyle laws. And I forgot what the official number was, but if you go to a barber in North Korea and you're a man, you're allowed to choose between, I think it's 8 different haircuts, and they all have a specific name. And so if you are in North Korea, most of the country has the same haircut or the same 4 or 5 haircuts. Isn't that bizarre? There is not a whole lot of individuality. There is not a whole lot of individual thinking. They are a collective hive mind, or at least they that's how the dear leader wants them. And skinny, there's just no room in it for skinny jeans, huh? Now, if you are Kim Jong-un and you're sitting there and you're looking at the decadent fashions, aren't you tempted to just cancel stuff, make stuff illegal that you don't like? Because I know my wife would outlaw Crocs. I don't have a big thing against Crocs. I realize that some people don't care if they look sloppy, and they don't care how goofy their cloddy shoes look. Heck, look at the rest of them. They didn't even get properly dressed to go out in public. Why are they going to care about their feet? No one's looking at your feet anyway, people. Men, women, no one cares. No one cares about your shoes. But if my wife could send people to concentration camps for wearing Crocs, I think she might do it. And she's a nice lady. So then I start to think, okay, well, if we were going to ban something, if we were going to send someone to concentration camps for bad fashion, what would it be? Because I have a big problem. I really have 2 fashion things that just bug me to no end. Number one is when dudes have a polo shirt and they're doing the pop collar. They wear it like this up, and some of them will wear more than one pop collar at a time. And it's a goofy look. And it's kind of identifying yourself as a segment of society that nobody likes except, each other. Only other guys with pop collars could be friends with a guy with a pop collar is kind of what I'm saying there. And look, it's probably just a phase, and they'll grow out of it and go on and be productive, healthy citizens. But in the pop collar phase, it drives me nuts because when I feel the collar, if I accidentally have my collar up and I feel it like touching the back hairs, like at the bottom of my hairline, it drives me nuts and I have to pull it down. And then when I see someone with the pop collar, I don't know if he's doing that on purpose or if he's making it. He looks like an idiot on accident. And you almost want to go tell him, oh, dude, you left your collar up. Let me fix your collar. And I've done that to a friend. Well, not a friend, but like an acquaintance at a party. I was like, oh, dude, your collar got popped up. He's like, yeah. And then he popped it up. Oh, excuse me. And then he popped up again after I fixed it. And he kind of got mad at me like I was making fun of him. But you know what? Kind of what? Now I am making fun of you. I thought it was an accident. Oh, you did that on purpose? No, please. Go right ahead. The other thing that drives me absolutely insane, and this is probably already illegal in North Korea if Kim Jong-un is listening to this, or if he has an interpreter listening to this, you might want to pass this along to him because he will add this to the rolls once he hears what a great idea this is. I'm talking that this is for men only. This doesn't apply to women. You're all safe on this one, but dudes, I don't care how good a shape you're in. I don't care how much you work out. I don't care how solid your tan is. When you're jogging in a public setting, especially up and down a sidewalk next to a street or something, for the love of God and everything holy, put on your shirt, okay? Put on your shirt. You look disgusting. You're a sweaty mess. I don't care if you're in shape. You still look like a gross, sweaty, in shape mess. Nobody likes that. Women don't work like we do, guys. Women don't see a guy that's in shape with his shirt off, all sweaty, running down the side of the road, go, ooh, that's beautiful, and honk their horn. Hey, baby. What do you think? You're going to get some cat calls? Nobody wants to see that. Women don't want to see it. I certainly don't want to see it. It's gross. It's gross. You look gross. So if I'm not a big fan of prison camps and labor camps, but if we had to have them and if we had to send someone there for fashion faux pas, it would be the shirtless jogging dudes. We don't have that problem with women because they don't do that. So, you ladies, you all escape that. All right. 888-688-WALT if you want to be a part of the show. I'm James Parker, sitting in for Walter Sterling. This is Sterling on Sunday. What in God's name is Velo Hool talking about every single week? I listen to this show and I start to take that fishing report seriously, and then it's always something about fish having sex and breeding or something, and he has like a whole fish room. Really? Man, that blows my mind every week. I'm sorry. I was just listening along with you. I'm James Parker, sitting in for Walter Sterling. This is Sterling on Sunday. 888-688-WALTER, 888-688-WALT. Getting some comments here on the last segment. We were having a little bit of fun here with Kim Jong-un, the leader of Best Korea. He outlawed skinny jeans and mullets, which is kind of a good start. You know, I'm more of a freedom guy, but if you're going to start outlawing fashion trends, that's not too bad of a start. And I'm not completely anti skinny jeans, because there's a difference. There's the regular fit jeans, and then there's the thing between where they call it slim jeans. And so they have the skinnier legs. But to me, the skinny jeans are the ones that are actually sort of skin tight. And if they're made out of stretchy material, you're a dude that is wearing leggings. You understand? You're a dude wearing leggings. I know it has more pronounced seams than most leggings, but that's what it looks like to me. Comments coming in, if you can send someone to concentration camps, because that's what he's doing. He's sent people to forced labor camps in the past for getting too decadent and Western with their fashion choices. The one that I've gotten a couple of messages on, I think we all agree to this, is those pants that sag below your butt, right? I mean, does anyone... Like, that was even specifically mentioned, like singled out by Alicia Silverstone's character in Clueless. How the sloppy, saggy fashions that some guys embrace, it's impossible to think that's handsome. It's impossible to think that guy's put together and is going to be a good husband material, right? The guy that you can see 2/3 of his underwear. You know, maybe he looks cool if he's on a rap stage, or maybe he looks cool if you're in a rough neighborhood. You're like, all right, I'm not going to mess with that guy. But as far as like finding a mate, that can't help, right? I mean, finding the right one, or I don't know. I've found a pretty good mate here, and my underwear was not exposed most of that time. I don't want to say all the time. All right. So yeah, that's kind of an easy one. There's some other little fashion faux pas that, again, I don't really want to make anything legal, but if we're gonna have fun with the hypothetical, if we could outlaw some fashion trends, you know, I already told you about the pop collar and dudes jogging without a shirt. I myself am not a big fan of the super low saggy pants where it shows your drawers. I take that back. I just don't like it on guys. I kind of wish it would catch on with girls. You know, sometimes you can kind of see the top of their undergarments. That actually, you know, I'm not sure if I want my daughter to embrace that style, but for some reason that's a little more tolerable to my eyes than when a guy does it. So I'm a guy also. Ladies, you don't have to listen to me, but if you're trying to impress me, just say no to shoulder pads. If I can tell their shoulder pads, they're too big. But this whole Joan Collins sort of Falcon Crest, Brian Urlacher style that y'all have going on, yeah, just knock it off. Knock it off. Like, I get it. It makes a nice little square line, but you're not supposed to have square lines. Guys are supposed to have square lines. Guys are supposed to be one big rectangular block. We're supposed to look like we've just been chiseled out of a block of marble. You're supposed to be flowy and curvy and smooth and suave, like a ribbon floating in the breeze. And shoulder pads are sort of the antithesis of that. And what do you want to look like? Are you trying to look like a one-star general? Is that what you're trying to do? Are you trying to look like... Because, look, Kim Jong-un, in fact, I think in this article I was looking at earlier, I think he has shoulder pads in his fake military regalia. I always love it when the dictators wear military uniforms all the time. Like they need to, like they're not just in a costume. Dude, you're not really in the military. Like Muammar Gaddafi, he was Colonel Gaddafi. Really? Didn't make it any higher than Colonel, huh? You're in charge of the whole country. Still a Colonel. Something tells me this is just for show. A fashion trend that I'm concerned about, maybe it shouldn't go to prison camps, because I know a lot of people that I actually like, and they're intelligent, successful people who actually help me out in my professional life. But the ladies that get the inflated lips, I I understand if you have bird lips and they don't even show up and you want to get a little filler, but don't make them look like inner tubes or you got a bee sting. I'm James Parker in for Walter Sterling. This is Sterling on Sunday.
Sterling on Sunday. Guest starring James Parker, host of the No Awards Florida Stories. Welcome, James Parker.
Thank you. I'm James Parker. 888-688-WALT if you want to be a part of the show. 888-688-WALT, W-A-L-T. And I'd love to take your comments. Let's go to Mike in Sacramento. You're on Sterling on Sundays. How can I help you, Mike?
James Parker, oh, right on. I'm so glad to talk to you, man. Oh, my goodness. Thank you. I love your segment on Florida Stories. You kidding me? I turn on Sterling and I hold my beer. Oh, I swear, every night I laugh my little boom boom off. Let me tell you, your show, that segment is so original. I cannot wait for it every week. I'm in Sacramento. Well, I'm by Sacramento, and I hear it once a week. And I don't know, man. You're a breath of fresh air, and I really. And when you take over for Sterling, I get to listen to you longer. So I just want to say I'm a fan, and James Parker, man, you're hitting on all cylinders with me. I love it, man.
Thank
Really
you, Mike.
great.
Mike, you're so nice. It almost doesn't sound believable. I have this problem with my dad. I'm kind of a jerk in real life. I know I'm funny on the radio, but in real life, I'm really curt and kind of tough. And my dad's super nice, and people think he's faking it. Like when the cashier at the grocery store says, "You have a nice day," he goes, "You have a better day." My dad really means that. He's so nice, and I look at him. I'm like, "Are you pulling her chain?" And when your call started, I thought maybe you were pulling my chain, but sounds like you actually listen on a regular basis. Thank you very much for the nice words, Mike. You just called in to spread some goodwill. Is that it?
Yeah, well, you know what? It's you're original, and I listen to you. And hey, if I don't care what you do in your regular. I mean, it's like you're a breath of fresh air, and it's. I'm not one to kiss someone's boom boom, but I was like, James Parker, well, who is this guy? I started listening. Your direction you take is very original, and it is. It's funny, man. It
Thank
really
you.
is.
Thank you.
And your dad, you know what? You're very welcome. And your dad, you know what? He's super nice. And what you're doing is you're dissecting everything he does, and you're learning from all that, man. And you're kicking butt at it with your creativity.
All right.
That's how I feel.
I'm kind of getting embarrassed you're being so nice. Thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate the call. Thank you very much for calling in. If you want to be next, 888-688-WALT. And look, this is what he's talking about, the Florida stories. If you want to hold my beer for a second, I was just going to go into another one anyway.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Florida man hid cocaine in his anus during a DUI arrest. There you go. Collier County, Florida. It's exactly what it sounds like. A 48-year-old Lakeland man was driving under the influence. And, man, he knew he was behind the influence, so he pulled over into the shoulder on Highway 75. Cops pull over to check on him. Hey, we got a guy sitting here on the side of the highway in the middle of the night. And the 48-year-old Florida man was literally sleeping behind the wheel of his pickup truck. He was completely out, but the truck was off and it was in park. But when the deputy knocked on the window and finally got him to wake up, he opened the driver's side truck door and saw a white powdery substance just under the tip of our Florida hero's nose. And there was also a strong smell of whiskey coming from his breath. Now, I'm kind of impressed here. The Collier County deputy here didn't smell alcohol. He got a little more specific. It was whiskey, right? It wasn't tequila. It wasn't vodka. It wasn't rum. It wasn't beer. It was whiskey. Well, if you're that good, was it bourbon or was it scotch or was it a Canadian blend? But no, that's that always cracks me up when they have that level of specificity in the smell. So it was also reported that our Florida hero, the guy had bloodshot, watery eyes, was speaking slurred Spanish and was having even worse trouble getting the English out. And so they asked him to get out the vehicle. He fails the sobriety test. They arrest him, probable cause for driving the car under the influence of alcohol and drugs. And then when they got him back to the station, they're doing your normal procedures. And one of them, you've heard this on Florida many, many times, the old squat and cough. The old, you know what that's for. if you're not familiar with Florida stories, if you hadn't been as awesome as Mike and soaking this up for years, when the cops suspect you may have something up your backside, they make you take off your pants and your drawers, and then you have to squat all the way down in the position like you're pooping in the woods, and they make you do a couple of coughs. And for some reason, that helps. If you do have something hitting up there, it kind of pokes its turtle head out a little bit. And so they saw a little turtle head. They grabbed it, and it was a baggie. And then they said, "Oh, goodness gracious, this is disgusting." And then, wait a second. Wait, is that some more? And so then they pulled out another baggie. So now you are already thinking exactly what I was thinking when I read this story. Can't you just combine them into one bag? Like, why do you have to have them in separate bags? Wouldn't that make it a little easier? Or were you thinking of, well, if one of them gets caught, at least I have my other baggie so I can, I don't know, keep the party going while I'm in a holding cell? I don't know. I always wonder so many things on these. Cause if it's one of the little baggies, like you see in the movies when the cocaine comes in a little, like, looks like the baggies that your buttons comes in when you buy a new pair of pants. If it's one of those little baggies, can't you just swallow it? Yeah, that way you don't have to do the uncomfortable thing. You don't have to worry about the squat and cough. It's still going to come out your backside eventually. So it's not like, I don't know. I don't know what's going through these people's heads ever in these Florida stories. But we have a 45-year-old with the squat and cough. And all right, forgive me for having a bleeding heart here. But if the guy was all hopped up on cocaine and whiskey, he's driving down 75, and he doesn't like his ability to handle the car. So he pulls over to the side of the road, turns it off, puts it in park, and goes to sleep. I know he shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with, but once he was in that bad situation, didn't he kind of do the right thing? Again, you shouldn't be doing illegal drugs, and you definitely shouldn't be doing illegal drugs and whiskey and getting behind the wheel of a car. But once you've already made those mistakes, I mean, is this a victimless crime? I know. James is sympathetic to the guy that had 2 baggies of cocaine up his backside. I'm not known for being a nice guy here, but even the cold, calculating, cynical James has a soft spot in my heart for this poor guy. Poor guy, and I don't know. I look. Let's get a break. It is a victimless crime. And another great Florida man taken down by the old squat and cough. 888-688-WALTER, 888-688-WALT. I'm James Parker, in for Sterling on Sundays.
Tonight, doing Walter's work, welcome James Parker, host of Florida Stories, live, professional, James Parker.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Oh, dear. What?
Welcome to Sterling on Sundays. I'm James Parker, sitting in for Walter Sterling, and we were just doing some Florida stories. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in the next hour. Of course, I have some wild stories, like a guy accidentally shot himself in Walmart coming up. But Florida has a push to open up gambling, and wow, the legislature could just be days away from approving a multi-billion-dollar deal that would make what's already a tourist mecca an even more popular tourist mecca. And it's going to be fascinating. So stick with me for the last hour of the show. I'm going to be we're here for another hour and about 12 minutes or so. So just giving you a little heads up what's coming up if you stick around. Now, in the last year, in a calendar year, starting about 2020, didn't we all become somewhat epidemiologists? We are all amateur epidemiologists. And if we weren't at the beginning, we definitely have, not even by trying, learned so much about diseases and how they're spread and how the vaccines work and aerosol particulates and masks and distancing and surface and contacts and kissing and tear ducts and all kinds of crazy stuff. One thing I came across in my personal layman's epidemiology studies, a little disturbing, and I want to share it with you because I think it's really cool how far back some of this study goes. Epidemiology, the study of how to cure diseases and identify diseases and all that good stuff. Back in the 1700s, the HMS Seahorse pulled up into Boston. It's April of 1721. By the winter of 1722, more than half of the city's population of Boston, about 11,000 people lived in Boston, about half of them had been infected with smallpox. It killed 850. This was the big entree of the smallpox outbreak that was already ravaging Europe. It had already gone, a wave of it gone through Asia. There's other European colonies that were already dealing with it in the West Indies, in Mexico, and South America, and whatnot. But this was a huge one. There had been an earlier outbreak about 100 years before that, and that's the one that killed Native Americans basically indiscriminately for the 1600s. But now we have some new church records that are helping to round out the picture of how the colonists coped with it. And we believe, as far as going back to like the first vaccine, it's not that far in history. But the first thing that kind of is the same idea of a vaccine, being able to inoculate yourself against a disease, starts right here in this story. Some farmers figured out that there was a variant of the smallpox. It's like a smallpox cousin or whatever, but it's close enough that if you were infected with it, then it could stimulate your, what's it called? James, what's it called, the part of you that fights disease?
I don't know.
Oh, come on, man. Your immune system, I'm sorry, it really was that simple. It'll stimulate your immune system, your white blood cells, to come up with antibodies for this. And so some guys outside of Boston figured out they would go to the cow that had a version of smallpox, and it has like these big pustles, these big blisters on it. They would pop one of the blisters, and they would take a needle, and they would rub in and get a bunch of pus on the end of a needle. Cow pus from the smallpox blister on the backside of a cow. And then you would put a slit in your skin, and kind of like, when you wipe the oil off of a dipstick, when you're checking the oil in your car and you get your shop towel and you wipe it off, you would stick the needle in, and then you would wipe off all that pus inside your skin. You would use your skin like the little wipey on the dipstick, and you would try and get as much of the pus under your skin as possible. And then you would try and close it back up, and it would get nasty, but your body would react to it, and it was close enough. The two diseases were close enough related that the antibodies that your body developed in dealing with that would actually protect you from the smallpox that was ravaging the human population. Now, it would make you a little bit sick, but this is the cow version, and so it wasn't as bad for human beings. So that's just what I found going back in my own little epidemiology. Isn't this great that we have Google now? Wouldn't you have loved to have this when you were a kid and you have to look up stuff for book reports or whatever? This stuff came out when I was in high school, and it changed everything. But sometimes you go down these little rabbit holes and you end up in 1721 Boston, and there's some hick that's scraping pus out of a cow's diseased blister and then putting it under the skin of his own arm. Immediately, society was divided. And there was still a strong puritanical strain in Massachusetts. And there was one section of the religious folk that were very much against the inoculation. The other segment, I guess everyone was religious back then because they don't talk about the non-religious people and where they stood. But there was another segment of, it was almost like a church denomination now that was ragingly in favor of it. And they were trying to push this on as many people as possible. So, they say history repeats itself. Well, I don't think history repeats itself. What did Mark Twain say? History doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. I'm feeling some very strong rhyming going on. It's almost, it's got to make you feel better that not only have we seen this before, we've seen almost this exact same thing before, and we saw it 300 years ago with just a fraction of the technology and the creature comforts and the survival rate, really, that we have now. Look, there were 11,000 people in Boston. Half of them got smallpox and were knocked out. They didn't all die, but even the 850 that died, there were some that survived, but you still had severe loss of some of your bodily functions, breathing and stuff, like they were reporting from the coronavirus these days. Like, I'm over it, but, I still can't jog as well as I did, or I still have a weird cough that lingered for months. There's so many similarities between these stories. It's absolutely fantastic. Kind of gross. In fact, very much gross. I can understand why people would be reluctant to want to get that pus from the diseased cow and stick it in their arm. I have a weird thing about needles anyway. I wouldn't want to do it if it was a clean needle. Seriously, that's but that's as far back as it goes. That's the oldest thing I could find as far as what would count for a vaccine in somewhat modern medical times. It's so bizarre how good they were about that, because that really did help stop smallpox in its tracks for a while there. And smallpox was officially eradicated just 50 years ago. World Health Organization said, well, I think it's done. Wasn't that in the 50s when they finally got rid of that? It's so amazing. And it was like 60 years later that George Washington got some sort of minor chest cold, and they were bleeding people still. They would cut it and try and bleed it, so get the humors out or whatever it was, get the bad spirits out. But they basically bled George Washington to death. So they're so good in medicine when it came to the smallpox inoculation, but still dumb enough to basically bleed people to death. They almost bled Ben Franklin to death too. All right, I got a Florida story here. Largo, Florida. Just before 9 p.m. on a Saturday night, a man's at the Walmart on Missouri Avenue. He's on the Coke. We call them Coke aisles down here in the South, but I realize some people say soda or pop. We just say Coke for everything. He's in the Coke aisle. And the 30-year-old Florida man wanted to get one of the big cases on the bottom. So he does the old bend over, and while he's bending over, the firearm sitting in his waistband, not in a holster or anything. Why would you want to do that? It suddenly discharged. The 30-year-old Florida man suffered an injury to his upper right thigh. Whew, that's a close call. Several witnesses saw him take the gun from his pants after he was shot. He lays down on the ground because he can't stand up because his leg hurts too bad. So he slides the gun across the aisle to his brother. Officers were called to the scene.
10 seconds.
They asked if he had a concealed carry permit. Of course not. That's all right. He's going to be okay. Other than that, how was your trip to Walmart? I'm James Parker, in for Walter Sterling. It's Sterling on Sunday. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us, Sterling on Sunday. This is it. This is the last few precious, delicious moments we have together of the weekend. Chances are, sometime soon after you get done listening to me, you're going to go to bed, you're going to wake up, and it'll be Monday. All right, so let's make it last. Let's make it count. First thing, before I get into the big topic I wanted to talk about this segment, that's the Florida has a big push to legalize gambling and open that sucker wide up. I love the sound of that. I'm not even much of a gambler. I just love the sound of it. I think it would be good for society as a whole, and I'm kind of a freedom-loving dude. The more things that are legal, the better. Victimless crime. We'll get into that in just a second. I have to interject something here because this is a conversation that's been going on Twitter. I just thought I'd share it with you. It's something I've been basically going back and forth with all day. There's a friend of mine. His name's Ramon. He lives in Houston, and he was at the zoo with his two sons. And the sons and him got in a conversation about it. Look, if you were in a situation where you had to have like one of these animals, you had to pick out one of these animals as a sidekick at the end of the world, whether it's a zombie apocalypse or whatever it is, Red Dawn, whatever variation the end of the world is. What animal would you recruit first to fight alongside you at the end of the world? And I think he got the wrong answer because he said a good answer, but there is a right answer. It's like, well, this is subjective, James. I mean, different people could have different correct animals. Wrong. He said rhinoceros, which, again, good. But the correct answer is hippo. It's not even close. It's not. There's a right and a wrong answer. And for all the other people who are going through here saying, oh, I would like a lion or I would like a panther, they just didn't think about it. And they probably never thought about this before. But my friend Ramon and his kids just stumbled onto a question and a discussion, though, that I've had several times. I've probably had it 10 times just on the radio. Me and my kids have talked about this before, too. And so let me just walk you through why hippo is the correct answer on the animal sidekick you would like have fighting with you at the end of the war. I mean, at the end of the world. The most dangerous animal alive, the one that kills more human beings is a hippo. Yes, a hippo kills more human beings every year than lions, than snakes. If you want to get real technical about it, you could say, well, the mosquito kills more people because they spread malaria and other diseases. Okay, technically speaking, yeah, but that's not what we mean. A mosquito can't stop you into basically a bloody puddle underfoot. A mosquito is not going to take your head and bite it straight off of your body with one fell swoop. A mosquito can't take a bullet and just keep on going. No, the correct answer is hippo. And look, rhino's a really good answer. Why? Because a rhino is so close to a hippo. Everything that a rhino's got except for the horn, the hippo can do and do it better. Hippo's a little bit bigger. Hippo's a little bit stronger. Hippo can actually swim. I don't know if you've seen YouTube videos of hippo swimming, but it will blow your mind. It's pretty impressive. They are literally the most dangerous animal. And they're so cute. That's the horrible part, is how adorable they are. It's like, oh, look at that. Is Jesus perfect killing machine? Who's Jesus killing perfect? Who's a good hippo? You're a good hippo. Crunch. And then he just snaps you in half, throws you around. All right, let's get into this Florida story here, because I know I do a bunch of wacky Florida stories, and I have a couple. Look, I still have 1, 2, 3. I'm probably going to get to at least 3 more of these wacky Florida stories, but this is the legit one. Go over to Tallahassee, and the Florida legislature could just be, maybe as soon as this coming week, approve a multi-billion-dollar deal that would reshape gambling in America's favorite little state that's dangling off into the Atlantic Ocean. They're going to open up gambling. This has been really cool because the sports gambling was just recently legalized, and a couple of states at the federal level, and then a couple of states jumped on it almost immediately. Mississippi already had the legislation in place before the feds even passed it. So whenever the Fed stuff was enacted, Mississippi just jumped on it. And if you're like, well, what does Mississippi care? I don't know if you've been there lately, but if you go down to the coast of Mississippi, right there on the ocean, it's a small strip where Mississippi touches the ocean. It's like 3 counties wide. Well, what is that, like maybe 100 miles? No, it's got to be less than that. But they legalized gambling in international waters back when I was in like high school or college, so 20-something years ago. I don't want to say how old I am because I'm getting up there. But then when Hurricane Katrina came, it busted up all the little floating casinos that were, most of them were at the end of little piers and docks, and they had some nice accoutrement for a floating casino, but the hurricane absolutely devastated all of them. So they relaxed the rules where it said, okay, you can have a casino. It doesn't have to be in international waters. It just has to be within, say 100 yards of international waters. And then they relaxed it to where it could be within 200 yards of international waters. Then they relaxed it to where there's a little highway that runs right on the beach. So it could be even further back, so they could have casinos on both ends of the highway. So there's a strip in Gulfport and Biloxi where they have amazing casinos. And you've been to the ones in Vegas, and yes, the ones in Vegas are better. But, man, Mississippi ones are pretty close. And when they legalized sports gambling at these casinos, because now they're on land, it was a huge hit last year. I believe there was wasn't there just 3 states that had legal sports gambling for last football season, as funky as last football season was, and there's going to be a few more that are jumping on it. But look, when you see the numbers on what Vegas has had sports gambling, oddly enough, but it got opened up a little more there. I think, what was the other place? What was the other place that had sports gambling? Was it Colorado or something? I don't know. Maybe they're just still high. But if Florida jumps in on this, is expected to guarantee $2.5 billion in tax revenue for Florida's state government over just the next 5 years. Now, I hope this thing passes, and I wish it would be even more widespread than just sports betting at those, because what they have in Florida a lot of times is the tribal facilities. I would like to open it blow it more open than that. But look, I'll take this. The concern is if this does pass, maybe as soon as this week, there's going to be a bunch of lawyers who are going to drag this into courts. Who are the people who are fighting against sports betting at casinos? Like, who is really who's damaged by allowing sports betting at casinos? Who's negatively affected? Whose interests are hurt by that. Again, it looks like another one of these victimless crimes here. So before the courtroom drama even starts, I'm just smelling lobbyist. So let's think about it. Who would be against legalized sports betting on land on casinos? Maybe, I don't know, a company that does sports betting online and it would take business away from them. So it's thought that there's some lobbyists by DraftKings who are trying to kill the deal outright, and then they're going to be the ones who are going to be the financial backers, because it's not going to be DraftKings is suing to stop sports betting. DraftKings is going to give the money to some, I don't know, moms against every town's mayors against sports betting, or it might be like a religious themed group or whatever. But make no mistake, they're going to be some sort of hard to sell front. They're going to be a cover for the real work that's going on behind the scenes, and that is the online gamblers that don't want this to happen. Let's see. Because whenever you dangle $2.5 billion in front of the people who are going to be in control of spending that $2.5 billion, that is the politicians in the legislature in Florida, what's DraftKings going to come up with to stop it? They're not going to be able to buy off all those politicians. They're trying to buy them off now, but if this passes, we know that doesn't work. What do you have to do then? You really could just overturn this, something that's probably the will of the people of Florida, something that's probably well within the constitutional limits and spirit of the state and federal constitution, something that probably will have a positive impact on the financial well-being of the state government. But really, all you got to find is just that one judge, that one guy, and all you got to do is pay him off. So this is going to be interesting to see because, granted, I'm horribly biased in favor of it. But I've been noticing, this has been my observation, that so many of these things that I expected to die in courts or to get held up, oftentimes they still go through, and it's almost like justice is done. You know, I'm kind of a weird political animal, but when I see like gun laws being relaxed, I'm thinking, all you got to do is find one sympathetic judge, and that thing's going to get thrown out, and then it ends up becoming law of the land. And then when you see like the legalized weed or the legalized mushrooms in Portland, you think, or in Oregon, you think, well, all they got to do is find one judge to knock that down. But here we are, we have legal weed, at least in medicinal form, in like 40 states now, and fully blown recreational legal weed in like 14 states now. All you had to do was find one judge to blow that out the water, and we used to. But it's almost like, I know I'm going counter to the mainstream of what you hear in most news channels, but it's almost like we're getting better rulings on some of these new laws, and freedom is actually expanding in this country. I like it on both ends. DraftKings has hired 11 new lobbyists in the past few weeks. It's part of it looks like a little last-ditch effort to either alter the compact or get it killed altogether. So we're about to find out this week. Is it really that easy? Because it used to be this whole time there have been people that have wanted gambling. The politicians, have wanted gambling. If public sentiment won't get them kicked out of office, they would love to spend that money. But there's always been some sort of lobbyist. There's always been some sort of special interest. There's always been some group that's been able to stop it. And it just looks like that's not happening as much in 2021. And that's a good thing. People talk about this country's falling apart. We're going to hell in a handbasket. We're in its final days or late stages or whatever. No, we're not. A lot of this stuff, a lot of things I see around the country are moving in the right direction. Oh, this country's more divided than ever. No, we're not. Geez, we had a civil war. There was a, I don't want to say a terrorist bombing because that word comes with all kinds of connotations, but there were bombings, acts of violence and intimidation and coercion in order to further a political cause. There were those types of terroristic bombings by anarchists in New York City, something like once a month in 1920, right? But you know how we have sometimes there's some guy that throws a bomb off in here. What was the one recently? What was that, Memphis, that had the bomb go off? Think about that. There was one every month for a year there. The anarchists were going so crazy. We also had bigger riots back then. I know Gangs of New York isn't a documentary, but it's a little closer to the portrait of what life was like back then than if you went out in the streets of New York today. Things are doing great. Do you know how awesome things are in the United States of America in 2021? Do you realize how amazingly awesome our problems are compared to almost every society for human history going back to the Stegosaurus? Things are really good, and they're getting better. Let's stick in Florida. Oh, yeah. I got a couple Florida stories coming up, so stick around for those. 888-688-WALT, 888-688-WALT. I'm James Parker, in for Walter Sterling. This is Sterling on Sunday.
Walter Sterling is avoiding work. Tonight, doing Walter's work. Welcome, James Parker, host of Florida Stories, live, professional, James Parker.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Oh, beer. What?
Welcome, Sterling on Sundays. I'm James Parker. Let's get it right into one of those Florida stories. This is a good time for it, right?
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Oh, beer. What?
It's a weird one. This is a man from the Florida Keys. They have that big Highway 1 that goes from key to key. I haven't been on it. I just saw it in the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie True Lies, and I think that was a documentary. So I think I have a pretty good handle on the situation here. But do you know what mangroves are? Mangroves, like when they have sort of swamp, sort of island, and there's a bunch of trees with the roots that are growing all misshapen, kind of making a bank instead of having like a mud bank or something. But the mangroves, I don't know if that's a universal term. Some of you inland people don't get to see a whole lot of mangroves, but it's like just like a shrub, kind of a tree, kind of a shrub. But when you're on the coast, there's a lot of it around here. I live in the New Orleans area, and when you're rolling around in the swamps, especially if there's like brackish water, either salt or kind of half salt, like an estuary, a lot of mangroves. So a guy is driving erratically on his boat, and he's not far from that highway, Highway 1, and he is in the area of Key Largo. He's not quite to the key. He's on the outskirts of where it starts to sort of disappear and slide to the ocean, and that's where the mangroves are. And there's like little channels and canals and stuff that are through the mangroves. Well, our hero's in a 21-foot boat at 9:30 in the morning, driving at a high rate of speed. People from Highway 1 can see him driving erratically. He runs into a little bit of the mango root lodge there, gets ejected from his boat, and lands in a big pile of these roots. So some concerned drivers on the bridge, because they're all watching this, a couple of them call 911. And so the authorities get in their little flat-bottom boat, and they go head out into the swamps. And when they get to the little mangrove group, they find the 58-year-old Florida man unconscious. Well, he's not moving. Can you hear? Can you see him breathing? No. Pick up his wrist. Does he have a pulse? No, he doesn't have a pulse. The Florida Wildlife Commission officials told the Miami Herald that they couldn't see any injuries, but when they picked him up, a spike from one of the mangroves had speared him basically in the head and killed him almost instantly. This isn't a fun story. This isn't a funny story. But there's something about Florida where they can find new, innovative ways to kill themselves that just doesn't happen in other states. Has anyone in Iowa ever impaled their head on the roots of a mangrove shrub? Does that happen in Nevada? Does it? Does it happen in Vermont? They probably don't even have mangroves up there. But 58 years old. And look, driving erratically, they're not going to, there's no reports from a toxicology test or anything. So I don't know, maybe he was drunk at 9:30 in the morning. But you got to think he's 58 years old. He's going out at 9:30 in the morning in his own little 21-foot boat. He's probably done this 1,000 times. So it's not like this is just some newbie idiot who screwed it up. So how do you end up going super fast, driving erratically, and getting yourself killed that way? I have no explanation for that. No explanation for that. And then really, Is that a bad way to die? You're not going to live forever, so it's not like you're choosing if you're going to die, just how you're going to die, under the assumption, like if he had to die that day, if he was only going to make it to age 58, how else would you like to go out? Because the only thing I can think of better than going out, just an accident doing what you love. I mean, this guy, he lives such a great life. He gets to go fishing at 9:30 in the morning. That's not so bad. More Florida stories coming up. I'm James Parker, in for Walter Sterling. It's Sterling on Sunday.
Welcome, James Parker, host of Florida Stories, live, professional. James Parker.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Oh, beer. What?
And I do have a Florida story for you. We're going to Jacksonville, Florida for our next Florida story.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Oh, beer. What?
So a guy walks into a bank. That sounds like the beginning of a joke, right? Florida man walks into a bar. No, so a Florida man walks into a bank. It's just before 1 p.m. And the guy goes up to the teller, says, "Hey, I got a gun. Give me all your money." And the teller, this is not part of bank protocol. I checked up on this. I read through some comments. This is not what the bank teaches their tellers to do. The teller goes, "You don't have a gun. I'm not giving you any money. Get out of here." And so the guy pulls out his gun and plops it on the counter. He goes, "This is my gun. Now I said, give me all your money. You better not be hitting any alarms or anything." And the teller, this is the ballsiest teller in the history of banking, looks at the gun and looks at him and goes, "No, I don't think that's a real gun." "What do you mean it's not a real gun?" "I don't know. Maybe it's a duplicate or maybe it's a BB gun. But no, I don't think you're going to shoot me anyway." And he goes, "Give me the money. I'm serious." And right then he gets the attention of he's an off-duty sheriff's deputy, but he's on a detail. So he's still in uniform and doing security. It's not like there just happens to be an off-duty cop in the lobby. He's working a detail there, but he is officially a cop when he's not doing that. So he's like, "Is there a problem here?" And the guy says, no problem. And so he puts his gun in his pocket, back in his jacket pocket, and walks out the lobby. And the security guard, off-duty cop working the detail, says to the teller, "What was that all about?" He goes, "This guy just pulled out a fake gun and tried to rob me." And so the guy goes out and immediately arrests the dude. And they didn't say if it was a real gun or not. And his name hasn't been released, so I don't know how old this guy is. But I have a sneaking suspicion, just, hey, my Florida sense, Spider-Man has a Spidey sense. I'm starting to develop a Florida sense because I've done so many of these stories. I think this might have been a real gun, and we just have a cool as a cucumber teller who saw the timid nature in this guy's eyes and thought, even if that's a real gun, he's not going to pull the trigger. He wants money. He doesn't want to become a murderer. That's a whole different level of crime, and he's not willing to cross it. And I can see this guy shaking in his boots, just trying to pull off what he's doing. Look, the teller's probably going to get fired. The comments under this story were fantastic. The teller's probably going to get fired for this. But really, how cool is that? Also, from our Florida stories, you think that one's good? Well, guess what? I've got some more. Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Oh, beer. What?
All right, we have a guy get shot over throwing a banana. WFLA reports.
New tonight, a Largo man is behind bars after police say he shot at a man during a road rage argument. Pinellas Park police officers say 34-year-old Robert Lewis was yelling at another driver on US 19 when that guy threw a banana at his car. Lewis allegedly responded by shooting at that driver. Officers tell 8 on Your Side the victim was not hit but was cut by shattered glass.
He threw a banana at his car. Who's running around with just extraneous produce at the ready, right? It's just kind of happenstance. Maybe the guy's coming back from the grocery store or whatever. But someone throws a banana at your car, so what do? You start squeezing off rounds at him? Were you threatened by the banana? Was the banana, is that in any way, like, has anyone been killed from a banana before? And how would that even happen from a tossed banana? That look, I know it escalates the situation somewhat, but not all the way to like the level of a firearm, like the level of murder. You threw a banana at me. I've got something is weird about people, and I don't have this gene, but I know people who have this gene, and I've experienced them on in my driving career before. But there are people who get way too upset at the smallest slight when they're driving. Like, he cut me off. He's like, yeah, he probably did cut you off. He didn't even see you, or he's in a hurry, or he started changing lanes before checking his blind spot, and by the time he did check his blind spot, it's too late. Or maybe he is a jerk. Who cares? I just blow it off, and my wife blows it off. But we both have a couple of friends that they go insane. I had a former coworker who I only worked with him for 2 years. He got into 3 road rage fights in those 2 years. And I loved hearing the stories. I'm just not one of those guys. I imagine one of the last places I'd be throwing a wayward banana is in Florida, because you can just go ahead and assume there's a pretty good chance the Florida man you're tossing your produce in the general direction of it very well could be crazy and have a gun on him at the same time. Luckily, he's not a good shot. I mean, he did squeeze off some rounds, but he didn't hit the banana throwing fella. He just crashed his window, and some of the glass spilled on him, and he got a couple of cuts on his legs. Do I have time for another Florida story here, James?
One more.
All right, let's do one more. Thank you, sir.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
We're going to Tampa Bay for this Florida story. Actually, it's right outside of Tampa Bay in the Pinellas Park unincorporated county area. And this guy is I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong location. This is a woman who's actually in Minnesota. Now, how is Minnesota and Florida stories? Hang on for a second with this one, all right? So we're in a parking lot of a Walmart, 4-door Chevy Silverado. A 35-year-old woman is lying in the back seat taking care of herself. Do we know what I mean by that? I don't know if maybe kids are listening. She's practicing self-care. She's having fun by herself, right? A lot of fun. As much fun as you can possibly have by yourself without drugs being involved. So the cops come up because someone saw her, and so the cops are like, excuse me, you're not allowed to be doing that to yourself in a parking lot, especially when people can just see through the window of your Silverado. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was in Florida. They said, no, you're actually in Mankato, Minnesota. She's like, this isn't St. Petersburg? And the cops, this is a funny little back and forth here. The cops are like, if we were in St. Petersburg, could you be diddling in the parking lot of, would that make it okay? I don't understand how this is your alibi. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. It's a misunderstanding. I thought I was in Florida. So even, what is that, 12 states away, halfway to the Arctic Circle. You're on the border of Canada, for the love of God. You're in Minnesota. The Florida mystique and cloud of strange criminality can stretch all the way up to Minnesota and have some sort of effect. Isn't it beautiful? Because, look, Florida stories are no longer confined to Florida. Oh, no, it is an infection that has gone nationwide. I'm James Parker, sitting in for Walter Sterling. You're listening to Sterling on Sunday. Welcome. This is Sterling on Sunday. I'm James Parker, sitting in for Walter Sterling. If you like what you hear from me, you can find me on my day job. During the week, I host a financial talk show with my buddy Gregory Ricks. It's called Winning at Life. You download the Winning at Life app. That'll get you in touch with our show. We're on like 18 affiliates. Nothing as big as Sterling on Sunday. But we got a nice little regional show, and we talk about money. So what's going on in the stock market, what's going on with bills passing and your taxes and Social Security, and a lot of questions from callers. The guy that I do the show with is a financial advisor, so he answers impossible questions. It's a good little show. Check it out, winningatlife.com, or download the Winning at Life app. If you want to find me on Twitter, my handle is @JamesParkerShow, and I realize I have a painfully generic name, James Parker. There's a lot of me, so finding me on Facebook isn't necessarily that easy, but I'm there. If you really want to find me, I think you could probably do it. And if you want to continue hearing me, continue listening to this show, because next week I'm not going to be hosting, but you'll hear me during Florida Stories. Yeah, that's right. Remember, I'm the guy that does Florida Stories. But when I'm hosting, I like to end the show with something educational. I don't want you to just walk out of here with a couple of chuckles. We're gonna make ourselves better people today. We're gonna do some learning. We do that by going through this day in history. I call it Best Day Ever. I call it Best Day Ever.
Best day ever.
Hey there, welcome to Best Day Ever. I'm your host, James Parker, here to tell you why today, May 23rd, is the best day in the history of ever. This is it. There's been a lot of good days. This is it. This is the best, because it was on this day in 1430. Joan of Arc was captured by the Burgundians. She was then sold to the English. And you know what? She was way out of line with that whole Battle of Orleans and whatever. She got her comeuppance, silly Catholics. I'm just kidding. You never heard any anti-Joan of Arc jokes before, have you? It was on this day in 1785. Benjamin Franklin announces the invention of bifocals. It was on this day in 1883. A baseball game happened between a team that was completely one-armed men and a team that was completely one-legged players. I don't even know who won, but
Best day ever.
I kind of want to see that. It happened in 1883. We haven't done it since. Could you do that today, or would you be accused of making fun of the handicapped people? I don't know. I would watch. If they did it, I would watch it. It was on this day in 1922. Walt Disney incorporates his first film company. It was called Laugh-O-Gram Films.
Best day ever.
It was on this day in 1934. Notorious criminals Bonnie Parker, no relation, and Clyde Barrow are shot to death by Texas and Louisiana State Police while driving a stolen car in Louisiana. So that's not bad. It's not a bad way to go out. Remember we were talking about that earlier? It was on this day in 1955. The Presbyterian Church begins accepting women.
Best day ever.
It was on this day in 1960. Adolf Eichmann, the Nazi officer who organized the final solution, was finally seized by Israeli agents in Argentina. Yeah, and smuggled to Israel a few days later. This guy made it till 1960. He was on the lam. It was on this day in 1994. Pulp Fiction won the Golden Palm for Best Film at the 47th Cannes Film Festival.
Best day ever.
And finally, it was on this day in 1999. This is actually a horrible tragedy, just crazy that it happened. It is in Kansas City, Missouri. Owen Hart, the professional wrestler, he died. He fell 90 feet while being lowered onto a WWF wrestling ring. He was just 33 years old.
Best day ever.
And that kind of sounds like a Florida story, right? How did you die? You died falling off a wrestling cage that was being lowered onto a wrestling ring in a coliseum, and you fell 90 feet. And yeah, look, I don't know how I'm going to die, but I could probably just take put a line through that on the list of possible deaths for old Parker here, falling off a wrestling ring 90 feet. Hey, I have an update for you. I've told you a couple of stories about this over the last few years. There is a troop of monkeys that live outside the Fort Lauderdale airport, and it's a cute little story that I have to come up with. I remember the first time I told you about it was just to tell you about it, and then one of the updates I gave to you probably about 6 months ago was they had to change the policies and do like a little series of signs around the Fort Lauderdale airport parking garage saying don't feed the monkeys, and if you find a monkey in your car, just open your door and wait for him to come out. They have a whole protocol. They have a whole standard for these, and they can't figure it out. There's a troop of a few dozen monkeys that live in the swamp and behind the airport, but it's kind of boxed in because on the other side of the swamp is like this holding tanks for some petroleum refinery, and then there's like a highway on one side, and there's another industrial facility. So this little swamp forest that they're living in is boxed in. And so it's the same troop that's been doing this for years. And I had told you in the original story that they had traced them back to this chimpanzee farm in the mid-20th century, like in 1940s and 1950s. There were people who would go to Africa and steal monkeys and then bring them back and raise them and then try and sell them to research labs for, test primates. Well, some of these guys got out, and enough of them with enough genetic diversity can actually maintain a troop now for multiple decades. And they actually had some scientists go in as part of someone's graduate project. Isn't this cool? If you're like a zoologist or some Steve Irwin in the making for your graduate project, you're going to catch a couple of those monkeys, analyze their DNA, and they matched the DNA to this troop of monkeys that lives adjacent to the Fort Lauderdale airport parking garage, to a pack of monkeys in Sierra Leone. This population of monkeys is actually the most widespread species on the African continent. And it goes basically, if you're looking at one of those colorized maps, anything from green down possibly has these monkeys involved. As widespread as they are, they got it narrowed down to when whoever in the 1940s went and stole this family of monkeys, or maybe it was a whole troop or whatever, at least some of the monkeys were from this population. They've got it narrowed. And if you look at a map, Sierra Leone's not that big. It's smaller than Texas. It's probably about the size of Louisiana. It's not that big, and they got it narrowed down to that. Isn't that pretty cool? So that's an update on a couple of Florida stories that I've kept you updated on. So I'm going to tell you another little secret about Walter Sterling. Y'all don't know how I met Walter Sterling. This story goes all the way back. How much time do I have?
10 seconds.
I'll tell you next time. Stick around. I'm James Parker, in for Walter Sterling. This has been Sterling on Sunday.